What's up, Fathom Church, and welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. This is your host, Kyle Knight. This is a podcast where we love to just have conversations to hopefully help you go deeper in your relationship with God. I'm in the podcast studio with our missions minister, Karina Bost. Hi, Karina.
Hey.
And lead pastor, Chris Martin.
Hello.
And special guest.
Special guest.
We have a fourth, our worship minister, Amanda Blehm. Hi, Amanda.
Hey. How's it going?
Good.
And Aubrey can hear us through the wall. So
Yeah.
Aubrey, you're number 5.
she doesn't have a mic.
Wow. Okay, she didn't respond. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. It's been a little while since you've been on, and it's been a little while since we've had anybody else on. So
Yeah.
we're glad that you are here.
Thanks. It's good to be here. I feel like last time that I was on, we were in the bigger podcasting room at the other building. This is my
We were in a
first time in the
basement.
tight
Yeah.
little office with y'all.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah, we were in a dark basement. Now we're
This
in a
is
tiny
bright,
little
tiny
bright office. Share
Closet
the wall with the
/
gym.
office. Yeah.
Hey, so we are going to, this is the first episode of hopefully many that we're going to be starting kind of a new series, and we don't know what we're going to call it yet, but it'll be on the title when you see this probably. But this is going to be a new series where we talk with Amanda about worship here at Fathom, kind of the songs that we sing, why we sing them, why Amanda and her team chooses the songs that we sing, sometimes songs that we don't sing and why we don't sing those songs. But we really wanted to get Amanda on here and really go deeper into worship here at Fathom, the worship ministry that she is leading, the worship team that she is leading, and really just dive into it more and kind of dissect it for all of us and hopefully for you that are listening, so that you can learn just more about what goes into our worship ministry and what Amanda puts into it. And so this today we're going to talk a little bit about how Amanda kind of gets to the point of picking some of these songs. And spoiler alert, I don't think she picks them just out of a hat, right? Good. She's shaking her head. She doesn't just do that. There's a lot that goes into this. So let me just ask you this first question, Amanda. What do you love about your job? Like, what's some of the things you love about being the worship minister here at Fathom? Only a couple things.
Oh, man. Gosh, there's just so many things that I do love about it. I love that I get to minister in a way that is a little bit more corporate as well as individual. I love being able to lead my team and be able to be creative and use the giftings that God has given us to be able to lead the rest of the church in worship. I love that I get to do something with the musical gifting that the Lord has given me, as well as the leadership gifting that he's given me. And even the discernment that he continually just supplies me with to figure out what's a good fit week to week or what's a good fit in our full song bank. And really, I just love playing music for Jesus.
That's good. That's good. That was a perfect answer. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Sure.
Hey, let's get into, so we've got you've got a new song that you're kind of introducing here shortly. To the church. So church, you'll hear a new worship song pretty soon. But let's, taking that kind of as an example, and we'll talk about that song specifically. Let's start with what are the kind of things that you, Amanda, that you look for when choosing songs to play, to lead with your band for Fathom? Like what are some of the things you think of first?
Yeah. So, we've kind of tried to develop a little bit of a criteria around kind of how we filter what songs we're looking for. We're looking for things that are true. Like, is it in line with scripture? Is it clear? Does it make sense as to what we're singing and why we're singing it? And is it compelling? So is it something that you actually want to sing? Is it something that can be ringing in your ears to help just reiterate and preach to your heart the truths that you receive in your weekly Bible study, in the sermon on Sunday, all of these different things? It should just be very unifying in those ways. And so sometimes I can get a little bit overly picky. Sometimes I'm a little less picky. It just depends. But I listen to a lot of songs that I can find just on Spotify, not necessarily what's the most popular. Sometimes I look at what's most popular. Sometimes I look at some older stuff and say, how can I revamp this for us now? There's some songs that I may not be the biggest fan of, but it seems to be like a really good fit. And there's enough other reasons that can go beyond my personal preference as to why we might bring in a song. There's so many more reasons than that, but I feel like that kind of gets us started.
That's good. That's good. Hey, Chris, being a former worship leader back in your heyday, did you kind of go through this process too? Now being a lead pastor, what else can you kind of add to that of some of the things that maybe you did as well in picking songs, or maybe some of the things you didn't do?
Yeah, I think Amanda and I are pretty closely united on this, just in terms of really wanting the songs to be thoughtful, right? So, I mean, sometimes it's just like, sometimes worship leaders will literally just pick whatever's on K-Love or whatever is, top 40 sort of worship songs, whatever the newest this band or that band that comes out. And those songs are normally popular for a reason. And sometimes they meet our criteria. So that true, clear, compelling, those three kind of categories. So, I mean, sometimes a legitimately top song is going to hit those. Other times they're not. And so, trying to avoid the temptation to sing something because it's really catchy tune, but may lack depth or may lack truth, or even just have a couple of wonky lyrics that are just iffy, it's sometimes it's hard to say no to those things, because it's like, oh, this is a great song. There's a reason why it's at the top of the charts. There's because people love it, and it is a great song, but it may not be great for us. It may not be the right song for Fathom. So when I was a worship leader, I just kind of made those decisions. The thing I love about working with Amanda is that she brings songs and we kind of work through them together. And ultimately it's her call, but there's this, I feel like as a pastor, I have a worship minister here who I can really, like, we just kind of, she picks the sets, but we get to work through this stuff together. And I think it's a real delight. And I hope that it comes across in how people experience both the preaching and the worship, and them really trying to work hand in hand with the same, like, we take worship prep seriously, just like we take sermon prep seriously. It's not just, hey, what song is catching our attention right now? So, yeah.
As you said that, and I know, Amanda, you talked a little bit about how you choose songs, but that's a good point that I'd love for you both to kind of elaborate on, and to kind of teach our church in the preparation, just weekly prep that you guys both do. How do y'all meet because I know that they do meet to talk about what the sermon is going to be about, and that kind of influences sort of how Amanda goes about picking her songs. But what does that kind of process look like for you guys?
Yeah, I usually reach out to whether it's Chris or somebody else that might be preaching that particular week, and at least get an idea of, like, okay, since we are more of an expository preaching type of church, I can look ahead at the scripture that we're going to go through, and I could be praying through that. But then I want to see who's preaching on that passage and find out what themes are rising to the top that we can be able to just complement the sermon with, that we can find in the songs as well. And so we're going to frame up, especially those last two songs. They're going to be so tied in with the sermon as much as we can. We can't always perfectly do that, but it's always nice when we can just be able to reiterate those themes and help drive them into that deeper place, into our hearts. And then when we're thinking about the first couple of songs of the day, we're thinking through just like, how do we warm up our hearts so that we can be able to experience worship in all the different ways that we do it on a Sunday morning? Because we do worship in so many more ways than music. Like, music is a big part of that. So often churches just refer to the music part as worship. And that's kind of become a pet peeve of mine. Like, yes, it is, but it's also the time that we get to spend in prayer, and the time we spend in the word, and the time we spend in fellowship. And every different component that we do on a Sunday we want that to be harmonious in how we put it together.
Yeah, I think that's true. I agree fully.
Agree with everything she said.
I also, I want to ask Karina a question because she's sitting here.
Well, thank you.
But I'm serious. I think about this crud all the time. Amanda thinks about this stuff. Kyle to maybe a lesser extent. But I would love to know, you were a parishioner at Fathom for a long time before you came on staff. So what's the perspective of the congregant on this? Is it something that's just, are we talking right over everybody's head? Or is it something that you and even your family notice as like, oh, I see how that links to this. I see how this fits together. Or are we just geeking out on something that we're kind of only geeky about?
I think
you can call them geeks. It's okay.
If we're geeky, that's okay.
Yeah.
But like, do people care that the songs kind of fit thematically? Do people care that the lyrics are well thought through as opposed to, hey man, I love that song, and it's like, well, that one verse is like, that's kind of weird, like, does that matter?
Yeah, I think, and Amanda and I have had this conversation before.
Okay.
That people don't notice it because it's done well. When people start to notice, it's because it's not thought through. So I think people don't think of it, and I think they would find this intriguing and realizing how much work goes into it because of how well it flows together. When it flows so nicely, you don't even notice. And so and I know Amanda and I have had this conversation of how doing that hard work makes this, like, the whole service feel seamless and a whole act of worship. And I know it's an intentional work, but I know most people don't.
Right. Yeah. No, it's helpful.
Well, and I would agree with that too, because I think it's I just think it's so good. I would say, like, from my perspective growing up in the church to where I am now, now, and I think this is definitely a Fathom thing, because I've been to other churches, worked in other churches too, where I don't think that much thought, and this is coming from someone who is not in a worship band or does not lead worship or has zero musical gifting at all. But from my perspective, I've seen like churches that don't put a lot of thought into the songs that they pick. It's just kind of is, whether it's the top charts or the worship leader is like, oh, this is what I've been listening to. Let's do this because this song's awesome. And there's something about hearing a sermon, especially our second set. There's something about hearing a sermon and then having that song in preparation to take communion and everything that just totally fit with what was preached and the text that was preached. And like Karina said, it's almost like you don't think about it because you're just kind of in that, like, God is speaking to you through the sermon and it goes right into the song. And so for me, knowing that that's what kind of you guys do, like, during the week and how you plan that out, I can kind of take a step back now and look at that and go, like, man, it's just like you've thought about it and prayed about it like so well that like it fits and it helps. I think that's what like is super unique about our church, and Amanda, the way you lead your ministry is that I think it is. I agree with Karina that I think it is just if people are like, they're not really thinking about it because it flows so well and because it's so easy and it's just like, oh yeah, this. Now, if they did, hopefully when they're hearing this, maybe they'll think about it next time and go, oh my gosh, this song is like absolutely perfect. Like, who knew?
So okay. So let's, I'm going to derail us. Okay. Sorry, Kyle.
You can.
I'm the lead pastor.
Derail away.
I'm going to split this into 2 episodes. Okay. Because we had planned on talking about one song in particular, and I want us to do that, but I don't want us to miss the moment that we're in right now, which is philosophizing about this. And then we're going to press stop, and then we're going to press record, and then we're going to talk about that song and just do it as a second podcast. But because I really think we should spend a little bit more time talking about those 3 categories, because I think that'd be really helpful. True, clear, and compelling. Like, I'd love different inputs on this. Okay. So Amanda and I are thinking from a worship leader perspective. But I'd love your guys' input on this too. Why does it matter? Let's just take them one by one, okay? Why does it matter that our songs are true? Like, why is truth important when it comes to worship? Now, this one might be the most kind of like, no duh one of the whole bunch, but it matters.
Right.
And there's a lot of probably snappy worship songs out there that are either blatantly untrue or at least getting close to the line. So why is that? Why do you guys think that would matter, that this would be true?
Yeah, I think if we're turning our hearts to worship in preparation for the sermon, and then at the end responding in worship, truth is important because it's like Amanda said, it's part of what we preach to ourselves. It builds our theology, whether we want it to or not. It establishes thought patterns, and if it's not true, especially those ones that are like almost true, can create like the most damage in our theology. Yeah,
I agree with all that. And especially I think there's a slippery slope when there are songs that sound good and that are catchy and that are really awesome. And there might be some of the songs that people have sang in churches before, but it's like, they're just slightly off. Like just a little bit, that you're like, if you really sat down to read, these are words that we're singing to God, that we're in praise and worship to our Father in heaven. And if we actually sat down and really read a lot of these, the ones that are just slightly off, but like sound good, but it's like, oh, that's not, to me, it's just not it could kind of screw up a lot of things and what you believe and everything. So I think it is the no duh thing, but you should be singing truths about God and to God.
What do you think, Amanda? Anything to add?
Yeah, being a person where music is just so ingrained in my brain and every part of my life, you could say like a random word and a song is going to pop into my mind for that. And I know that there's some specific people within Fathom that are the same way. And to me, that's one of the best ways to bury truth in my heart and to help me memorize scripture and to memorize attributes of God and to help remind myself when those times of doubt start to come up. It's like, no, I can come back to this. I can know that it's true because it's rooted in good theology and it's catchy enough that my brain is going to remember it and I'm going to enjoy that process of remembering it.
Yeah, I know it's a no duh, but just like we would say Jesus should be at the top of the org chart of every church and not just be assumed, just like we would say that the authority of the scripture needs to be on every part of our church and not just assumed, so too, truth in the lyrics of our worship songs needs to be explicit and put out there, as opposed to, oh, well, of course. It's a Chris Tomlin song. Of course it's going to be true. Maybe, but we want to do the due diligence around that. So I think true. So I don't think there would be many worship leaders who would say, oh no, you know what we're looking for is false. They just probably don't put some thought into it at times. It's probably more of a move of ignorance than explicit. I'm looking for songs that aren't true. Let's move then to the second one. Okay. So we move from true to clear. Now this is where things get murky. Do you like
Unclear?
what I did there? Good. So why should songs, or maybe disagree, but like, what do you think about clarity? When we talk about, is a lyric clear? What does that mean?
I think it's important because we're not just singing words. The author of the song might have had very clear intentions, and to them it means something, but that doesn't mean it translates into the common brain as what it was intended. And so if it's a phrase and you have no idea what it means, it's hard to worship. It's hard to offer that as worship. It's hard to even like process. I know we've all been there. We're singing a song and you're like, I'm not really sure what this means. And so then it really just kind of kills the spirit of worship because you're pondering this weird phrase that just popped up that makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, to me, it makes me think of when whoever's like writing, the songwriters, when they're creating the song and they're adding things to it, whether it's if it's scripture that they're adding to it or if it's their own kind of words that kind of make it a little unclear. Because like, here's the deal, like not everything in the Bible is clear to me. It's weird. And there can be some things that are like, oh, that is so not clear at all. I have no idea what they're talking about. But if somebody's writing a song that is true, that is biblically accurate, doctrinally sound, that is a good worship song that has a lot of scripture in it. And that's where you have to like kind of do the work yourself. Like if it's scripturally based and I'm still kind of like, oh, it's a little like confusing. It is still scripture. And, but it's when like other kind of little things are sort of added that maybe aren't part of scripture or something like that to make it sound better or whatever like that can kind of throw me off a little bit. But yeah, clear is like, I mean, I want it clear for sure. Cause I want to be able to sing know what I'm singing, but also I understand that it's like, man, there's some things in scripture that I just don't get. And I still want to sing it to God.
Yeah. What do you think? Anything clarity wise?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of songs that would be fine if we were able to have a conversation about it before we sang it.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, like, what is the intent of this so we can frame it up well. And we just don't get the chance to do that all the time. And so some of the songs that we don't sing are because of that, of like, I would be perfectly fine singing this song with all of you as long as we know the more balanced perspective on what's going on within that. Or if there's an opportunity that I can create a little bit of clarity on something that we do sing, where it can just be, a one sentence clarification, such as anytime that we sing Come Thou Fount, I try to pick the call to worship that is the scripture talking about what an Ebenezer is. And I try to always pair those two things because I don't want to make the assumption that everybody in the room knows what an Ebenezer is. And
Scrooge is what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that
Just
was
making sure.
my context for it when I heard the song the first time as a little kid. But then the older I got and the more value that the concept of an Ebenezer had for me, the more I started to grow a love for that song. But then I also just felt like, man, if I were somebody that did not grow up in the church, if I've never heard an Ebenezer outside of the context of that play, then I'd be super confused and it would probably distract me a lot more. And I'd kind of lose track of where I'm at in that moment of worship.
Yeah. So that's important, is that clarity is contextual, right? It is based in time. So especially with old hymns, more explanation is needed. But I think in modern worship choruses and worship songs, artistic creativity tends to sometimes win the day over clarity. And we just want to be careful about that. There's a word called hymnody, which is kind of a historical word that runs along with the writing of hymns. But churches used to practice hymnody where they would give commentary on hymns in their gatherings, and they would do hymn sings, and they would talk about how they were written and why they were written and where they are coming from, which is a practice that obviously has fallen out of favor and is logistically very difficult. Okay. But it's a different thing when you can say, hey, this is what this guy was thinking about when he was writing these words. This is where that is in the text. This is what that means. And this is why that allusion to, First Samuel was brought up, as opposed to, sticking with whatever they were talking about. Like those, we don't have that option. So yeah, I think that truth and clarity are really important. Is it true? Yes, it should be scripturally true. Is it clear? We don't want to take like all of the importance of turning on our brains off, but we really do. Music forms us. I mean, it just does. And it forms our doctrine. And if it's screwy or even murky, it's just not responsible, especially considering that our church isn't made of all mature, deep, sanctified Christians. It's a lot of new people. It's young people. It's these are hard things. So I think clear. Okay, let's talk to the last one, because compelling, I think, is the most subjective of the three. We move from kind of objective to subjective as we move along the spectrum, but compelling, when you think of, is the song compelling? What do you think? What comes to mind?
Is it good?
Okay,
Does it not suck?
Yeah.
I mean, for real, it's like.
So yeah, we're actually changing the third category. So now, is it true? Is it clear? And is it not suck?
Does it not suck?
Does it not suck?
For real though. So for me with this one, it's like, in a sense, I can kind of go both ways on this, that it's like, there are good, I mean, there are songs that kind of do suck, but that are true, that are biblical, that are clear, that I just might not like. But the thing is I want to sing them anyways, because again, it's worship. But on the other hand is I do like to sing songs that don't suck. And it's great that we sing songs that don't suck. Yeah. And that, like, it helps me. I mean, when you have good, compelling songs, that it helps me get into that place of worship. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I don't think it's obviously as important as the other two, but it's nice when your church doesn't sing songs that suck.
It's fair. Very good point.
What do you think, Karina?
I think it's just one of those things that, you want to be able to reach as many people. I mean, I think it's just true that everyone is not going to find the same songs compelling.
Right.
But it's like a general statement. And so I think if you want people to enter into worship in response, is, or prepare their hearts for the sermon, either side of that, you want people to engage, and they're not going to engage if they don't like the songs.
Yeah, I want to hear from Amanda on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the one that trips me up the most for, like, why sometimes you'll months will go by and we won't have a new song. And it's often because I'm struggling to find something that feels compelling. Because some of these songs can just get way too campy, rah-rah. And, like, that's fun in a specific context. Like, I want to sing those at summer camp with a bunch of high schoolers, right?
When you're a teenager at summer camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And, like, some songs may just be a little bit too much in a specific genre that might feel, I don't know, just that it's not going to serve everybody. It might serve a few, which is great. Like, I even have a whole playlist for myself, for my own personal enjoyment, of songs that I wish we could do at church, but they're just not going to fit well enough for the broad spectrum of the people that we have. Maybe it's too deep into one particular genre that most people aren't going to connect with. And that's okay if you love those kinds of songs. Or if songs just feel like they are a better fit for you in your car or in your prayer closet or wherever, that you can just sit and, like, really absorb that. Like, great. Maybe it's not necessarily a great song to sing with the whole congregation, though. Maybe just the phrasing of the lyrics are just really tricky to get all out. Like, I don't know, worship music could take the form of rap music. Do you think we're all going to be able to sing along with that in the same way? I don't think so. Like, I can't even imagine what I would be like trying to do something like that. That would be really just so silly, because that's not in line with who I am and where I am coming from culturally. But that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate it and that I don't have it on my own personal playlists, right? So I'm looking for things that can catch kind of the broad spectrum, that are really approachable, but that are still, like, exciting to sing. And sure, some of these songs can start to sound all alike, but we also don't want to get too obscure with it. So there's, like, a balance to be found there as well.
Yeah, there's more put into this than just like, oh man, that's a great song. There's a lot of thought put into this. I mean, Amanda spends a lot of time considering, like, is this something that men can sing? Is this something that women can sing? Is this something that people who are musically trained will find interesting, and people who aren't musically trained? there's a lot of pieces in terms of the compelling piece. And here's the thing. Sometimes we'll find a song, we'll go through the whole process, we'll get it in front of you as a church, and y'all don't like it. Like it just doesn't click.
Yeah.
And so there's a subjective kind of like, does this song work? No, it's a great song. It's clear. It's truthful. We think it's compelling, and then it just doesn't, it kind of lands flat. So this is where artistry comes in. I mean, essentially, a lot of what is compelling is defined by the congregation and the worship team symbiotically.
Yeah.
Right? What you respond to as a church and what the team, how the team leads it as a team really kind of works both ways. And so it's an elusive thing to try and figure out and find. But then like sometimes we will play a song the first time and it's like, oh, this is a Fathom song.
Yeah.
Like we just know it's like, oh, this is we hit a home run with this one. And that's a cool thing when that happens. And then sometimes we're just like bummed. We're like, dang it, that song is great. And why aren't people into it? It's like, okay, that's just, we are servants of this, really trying to serve our church, our congregation in worship. So I hope that's a helpful like way to think this through. It's really helpful hearing from everybody here that like, okay, true, clear, compelling. That's a good grid to run, worship music through. And you might even apply that to your own worship listening, like what you are engaging in, what you are taking in, what maybe you are somebody who goes for walks and listens to worship, or maybe you listen to worship when you're driving sometimes, or as part of your devotional life, you listen to worship. Ask yourself, why do I like this? Like, why do I like this song? Have I actually thought about the lyrics? Are they true? Have I actually thought about, oh man, that illustration that they're using in that, is that clear or is that kind of murky? Or am I just kind of grooving to it because I like the beat? And you might, and that's okay. But we want all three of those things when we start picking worship songs for a corporate experience. So
that's good. That's good. Amanda, your job's hard.
It doesn't feel hard, except for sometimes when I'm just hitting my head against a wall and it's just like these things aren't coming together. But I do appreciate just the acknowledgement of the work, because it is one of those things that goes so unseen, except for the few minutes on a Sunday morning. And so I do appreciate being able to like spend some time talking about it. I think Karina and I had talked about it one time, and then she sent me a message about like, you do a lot more than I realized that you do. And that was just like so validating. And I felt very appreciated and very seen and very known in that moment. So even just getting to do something like this feels really sweet to spend time talking about it.
Good. Yeah. Hopefully, church, when as you're listening to this, that you're learning a lot about what goes into this, what Amanda puts into this and her team and everything like that. So yeah, thank you, Amanda, for kind of dissecting this a little bit with us. And we're going to keep doing this because we want to kind of go through some songs, maybe each, I don't know how often we'll do this, but some new songs that we start implementing and introducing to you, church. We'd love to, again, have Amanda on to talk deeper with some of these songs and stuff. So hopefully you learn a lot from Amanda and from us. But thank you guys for this conversation. Thank you for being here, Amanda.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, church, for listening, and we'll see you next time.